Good morning. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our panel discussion on the Coach Approach for Leadership Development. We're extremely lucky to be joined by our esteemed panelists who were instrumental in creating this course offering in partnership with PowerEd. Just a couple of housekeeping items here for everyone on the call today. All attendees are on mute for the formal presentation. Questions can be posed throughout the presentation using your question and chat box feature along your control panel, and these will be addressed at the conclusion of the presentation. We've left a little bit of time there. My name's Ian Stevenson. I'm the Business Development Officer here on the PowerEd team. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us. As we jump in here, we wanted to delve a little bit into the AU experience. So we thought we'd start with a bit of a quick introduction for those of you who might not be familiar with Athabasca University. We are a global leader in online education, serving over 43,000 learners across 87 countries. Our institution has mainly focused on undergraduate and graduate studies with our faculties, but about 18 months ago, we launched a new business unit looking to provide online courses and certificates aimed at professional development. So Deb, why don't I turn it over to you and you can tell everyone a little bit about PowerEd before we turn it over to our presentation.
Right, thanks Ian. Like Ian mentioned, PowerEd was recently established as part of a strategy to address some skills gaps in the marketplace. PowerEd is continuing education. We're focused on professional development. We also saw a need to complement AU's existing degree programs. We provide short non-credit courses which can be bundled into a certificate, and some of our certificates will transfer into credit programs. We also provide a range of corporate services, including customized learning. We have a co-branded learning environment, and we can provide your managers and team leads with the ability to interact within the learning platform one-on-one with their staff. The other great thing about PowerEd and our courses is that they're eligible for reimbursement through the Canada Job Grant Program. So if you as an employer, or if your employer is paying for your tuition, they can apply for up to 2/3 of the cost of the training, up to a maximum of $10,000 per employee per year. And companies can be eligible for up to $300,000 per year in reimbursements. Now, each province has administers the program, and they administer it, of course, differently in each province. So be sure to check out the rules and regulations. And I'm going to put a link in the chat for you. There's an interactive map that we have on our website, and you can just click on your province and you can be taken right to those rules and regulations. And so, Ian, a little bit about the structure of our courses here at PowerEd, or in this course in particular. It's 2 weeks in length, and you'll be expected to spend about 8 to 12 hours per week in study. And it's delivered fully online, and the instruction is self-paced, so you can fit it into your day and your work week. You can work, if you're a morning person, feel free to work on it in the morning. If you, in the before times when we were taking our kids to the hockey rink and the swimming pool, you could sit there and do the courses. But yeah, they're pretty flexible that way.
That's great. Thanks, Deb. So before we turn it over to our esteemed panelists, we just wanted to delve a little bit into Coach Approach and sort of situate the conversation. At the end of the day, this course was developed in part to try and address the ability to strengthen relationships and support growth both in yourself and your team. We've really sought to create an engaging experience for the learner with a mix of practical scenarios and relatable examples that you can apply right away. But overwhelmingly, what we've heard from past learners is their appreciation for the opportunity to hear from leading experts, which really makes this course shine. So I think that's my cue to get out of the way a little bit and turn it over to them. We're extremely fortunate to be joined by 3 esteemed panelists who are going to take us through a fantastic discussion here this morning. So why don't we give them a chance to introduce themselves? Yeva, why don't I start with you? How about you say hello to everyone?
Thanks, Ian, and hello, everyone. And I wanted to start with saying how incredibly honored I am to be invited to be an author for this course. My background goes in business and psychology, and I have found that coaching and psychology answers and provides tools for many contemporary leadership challenges, and has often become the secret sauce for successful businesses and leaders. Like, I'm currently focusing on supporting leaders and their organizations towards building internal capacity and strategic resiliency towards internal, market, and economic challenges. And this course is much built to provide these practical insights and practical tools how to answer those challenges and make better organization by strengthening relationships. And that's it from me. Thank you. I'm so
No, that's
passionate
great. Thanks so much, Yev. I know everyone's really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about this. Jane, would you like to say a quick hello to everyone?
Yeah, thank you so much for participating with us today. I'm Jane Halford. I started my career as a chartered accountant working with owner-managed clients. Then I had a career revolution that I wanted to do something different. So I did the exciting thing of becoming a regulator. And in 2013, I thought that is not fun enough. So I became an entrepreneur. But along that journey, what I found is that you get into many situations, either with your direct reports or with people you're working side by side with, and you recognize the potential of those individuals. And sometimes you wish you had more tools to shine the light on what they're great at and where they could go. And that's why I was excited to be part of the coach approach, because it actually helps everybody to say, how do we actually take somebody who is high performing or wants to continue to grow, and how do we help be a part of that special journey for them? So I'm looking forward to the program and today's session. Thank you, Ian.
No, thanks so much, Jane. And Tom, over to you.
Great, thanks, Ian. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Rettel. I'm the executive chair of Chandos Construction, and recently retired as the CEO of the company, where I was for about 20 years as the leader of the organization. And I've been a student of leadership for my entire career, and it was always a passion of mine to figure out how to grow businesses and how to grow people. And I wish that I would have learned more about coach approach 30 years ago, because it's something that came to me actually about 5 years ago as I was looking for ways to build organization capacity. And it's leadership in what I've been tracking of it over the last 30 years or so is that it's a function of many things, and it's also dynamic, and it's a function of where society's values are trending towards. It's a function of organization maturity. It's a function of leader maturity, and it's a function of team maturity. And coach approach to me I am very, very comfortable in saying that it is the key to progressive organizations in today's work environment, and with just the conditions of what people are looking for in work. And organizations need to be agile and flexible and adaptable. So looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to our discussion this morning.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks to all three of you for the great introductions. And I think that really sets the stage for our discussion. So with that, maybe I'll kick things off here, and we'll just go with a bit of an informal panel. We want this to be conversational. So, it's always interesting on a virtual panel to try and make sure everyone has an opportunity. So we'll go a bit of a round table. But Yeva, why don't I start with you? Why train managers to use a coach approach? Why shouldn't companies just hire coaches for those who think they need coaching? Why take that more holistic approach?
Great question, Ian. So there's a lot of great coaches out there, and there are good opportunities to hire them for leadership development, and there are many cases when that is a good approach. But if we think about the business development and business growth and scalability, you need that internal capacity within your everyday leadership approach that managers just live and breathe like that, building those relationships of trust, psychological safety, learning how to listen. Like Amy Edmondson, who is the top researcher in psych safety, she emphasizes how important it is to understand that we are living in knowledge economy. And if we don't hear ideas, if we don't ask questions to our employees, we never tackle to that potential within our organization that we already have. And in many cases, especially answering contemporary challenges, like people leave when we are not giving them opportunity to grow. So it is much about the shift in the role of a manager to become a coach rather than this command and control boss.
Yeah, I really like that. Tom, is there anything that you'd like to add to Yeva's comments there as we look at, what that coach approach is and why it can be so valuable to organizations?
Sure. To me, organizations and managers, leaders always need to decide, what do you internalize as a core competency in your organization and what do you outsource? So if, for example, you are a sales organization, you need to internalize sales, whereas you may outsource your accounting or administration work. Whereas if you're an accounting firm, you need accounting as a core competency. So if you are in the business and you want to grow your business and your business relies on people, it should be a core competency that your people are able to develop people. Now, I'm not saying that a coach approach for managers is mutually exclusive with hiring external coaches. There's a time and a place for that as well. But but if developing people is part of your business, it needs to be internalized. It needs to be a key competency of the organization.
Yeah, I really like that. Jane, anything to add there as well?
Yeah, let me just pick up on Tom's comment, because I think the point that we miss sometimes is that you can lead from any role in the organization. And so the more skills that we get at all levels, we don't have to get caught up by titles or hierarchy. Why can't you coach your peer? Why can't you actually coach up to your boss? Maybe you're coaching clients, customers, what's appropriate there. But the key here is the skills. And if you know the skills, you can adapt to where they fit. But if we don't have the skills, then we just do whatever people trained us to do, and they may not have had the training either. So that's the fun part about having this type of program available to everybody.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You have a bit of a follow-up question for you, if I may. I know you have extensive experience in coaching leaders and training leaders to use Coach Approach. When you developed this program with PowerEd, what approach did you take to ensure that participants would really get that tangible value from the course itself?
Few things. So during my experience, I have found which methodologies are giving the best results for my clients, right? When they try something and they come back in the next time and they say, oh my God, this is really working. Over more than 10 years of practice, I have selected those methodologies and I'm mostly focusing on those, and those are the core methodologies I included in this course, absolutely. Another thing that I'm a passionate learner, and I love online learning and I love on-site learning, all kind of learning. But one thing is that that practical experience is a crucial part. So I really am so thankful to our experts, Tom, Jane, and Dave, which allowed to interview themselves and contribute with their stories, the real-time stories, how they have tackled challenges using these methodologies. Because we can all read books. All of this stuff you can Google, you can find, but the thing is about how to really apply. What are the key things to learn from practice of experts? How to really, what is that secret little thing that will make the most difference in practice? And I think this course combines those two great methodologies, which will give you great, solid theoretical understanding how these things work, and you will be able to build on that. And the practical element with experience sharing, crucial.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, Yeva, and that's certainly reflected in the comments that we've gained from learners who have gone through this course already, seeing the success and hearing that they really enjoyed that experiential learning component, right? Hearing from people who have been in the trenches, who have worked through those successes, but also talk very openly about their challenges as well, right? The things that they've learned. So with that, I think we'll move on to the second question. And Jane, maybe I'll start with you here. It's wanting to look at some of the benefits of a coaching culture within an organization.
Well, I'm going to give this answer in sort of today's context. You know, we're still struggling with the pandemic. It's not going to magically go away. So I think even an experienced coach right now needs more tools, more ideas, or refresher. How do we coach people that are in virtual? Maybe some organizations are going to get to hybrid workforces and some will get all the way back to in-person. But even in an in-person setting, we're now dealing with complexities of family, mental health, things that actually the coaching competencies will help the manager, the supervisor, the peers do much better at. So for me, this is even more important than it was a year or two ago because we have more complexity and our people need the coach more now than ever.
Yeah, that versatility piece is so crucial. So Tom, maybe over to you to speak through some of the benefits of a coaching culture.
Sure. So when you have one person that has a certain set of skills or a few people that have a certain set of skills, it doesn't create a culture. And we've all seen situations where somebody goes off, they take a course, they come back and they're super excited, and it doesn't really stick. And I've read articles about how hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on professional development and it doesn't make a difference. And in my mind, I've seen it so many times. I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with other people that I've worked with. Is if you just learn a skill, it does not become ingrained in the organization unless it's cultural. And so for coaching to be a culture, you need multiple people that have to have the skill set. So they're creating a common language and a common awareness and a common viewpoint. So people start calling each other on it. And then people start having conversations about that topic. And then that creates, it's not just additive to each other, it's actually synergistic. And it becomes part of the way the organization functions. And I go back to my comment about a core competency. It will not be a core competency unless it's cultural. And it will not become cultural unless it's valued. And so, the foundation of it is you have to value the development of people and you have to see that as a method of making your organization grow and perform better. And once you have that, you need the tools to do it. And the tools need to be available to, a large, not necessarily everybody, but all the managers, not just a select few.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeva, anything to add there?
Just a tiny bit. So coaching culture, I think, provides this great opportunity to balance accountability and good relationships. With old school boss approach, we would be like, yeah, we have a lot of accountability and fear, but we don't have trust. And without trust, it's not really going anywhere long term, right? If we want that continuous development based on trust, based in intrinsic motivation for a person to want to do better, to want to learn more, to want to excel, coaching is really the tool for managers to do that. And I super agree with Tom on that cultural aspect. I've seen people who are, taking coaching somewhere mid-manager, want to make a difference, but just culture eat them alive. Sorry. So I think that's why it's so important to make coaching approachable and accessible to a lot of people, because currently it's still in the market available for few selected high potential leaders because of the budgets, because of internal leadership development things. I think Athabasca with this online course provides this accessibility that's so crucial to bring this knowledge and these methods to the moment when we can say, yeah, it's going to be a tipping point when that's the new normal. We're not going to be talking about command and control anymore.
Yeah, where it's no longer gated, and only for a select few, but is really adopted throughout. And I think that goes back to Jane's point earlier around the ability to coach peers or to coach up, right? And sort of recognizing that title does not necessarily equal leader, and that top-down approach isn't always what is best for the organization in terms of its long-term strategy. So I think with that, we've been chatting a little bit about the importance of experience. Maybe each of you could take an opportunity to tell each of us here today about some of the leadership transformations you've seen by leaders who have, employed this coach approach. Maybe give us a couple of examples, and Tom, maybe I'll start with you.
Sure. I'll give you two examples, if I may, but one is kind of is a theme that I've seen. And when I took my coaching training, I started coaching high potentials in our organization, so a couple levels down. And these were people that were transferring from and doing well as an individual contributor to becoming a team leader. And I saw some very interesting patterns. As very, very strong individual contributors, they had a direct line of sight to cause and effect. I do this work, I see this result. And as they started to become team leaders, I invariably saw these little dips in job satisfaction because they were working with other people, but they didn't have that line of sight. So their results were actually coming through other people. And the transformation that I would help them with, that the coach approach and that skill set helped them with, is that they started to see and they started to receive job satisfaction from seeing other people grow and other people get results instead of themselves. So again, it's making that transition to, it's about other people. And people who are naturally very, very strong at doing things sometimes, usually will have some challenges making that transition, which I did as well. And I'll give you one example. I was working with a leader. This person was in his early 30s and just incredibly brilliant, incredibly hardworking, and made a name for himself by being, the hardest working and smartest person in the room. And he got a job as a project lead on a project that was, quite large, by far the largest he had ever done. And it was a joint venture, and he was matched with somebody who had 30 years more experience and highly specialized in this particular type of project. And he was staying up late, studying, trying to figure out and how to be the most progressive, smartest person in the room, and he couldn't do it. And he was getting very upset because he was outgunned by this person that had 30 years more experience. And he wasn't getting the respect, and the team wasn't, starting to push back. And coaching him through that to help him see that we reframed his vision of his role as being the smartest and the best and the hardest working, to having the job of extracting the best from the team, and to define his job as a functioning of the team, and to do that through coaching skills of asking and listening. And again, that shift from himself and his own work to others and the others' work. And then once he made that shift, it was like a paradigm shift, and he just totally blossomed, and his career took off as a team leader, as opposed to somebody who was, the best and brightest at a particular thing. So that was an incredible transformation I saw.
Yeah, I love that example, that idea of bringing others along, right? Bringing them up as well, not just your own personal growth. Yeva, how about you? Any examples that come to mind?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so I would like to share two. One is, so I had a coachee working with sales and marketing in the company, and what he was struggling with was that his team was always coming to him with problems. Yeah, and he was so busy just helping everyone. It kind of goes back to also what Tom was saying, right? He was the most experienced one. He knew that where the company is going, so he had most of the answers, right? So after working with him with coaching and encouraging him to use some of that on his team, he came back with amazing surprising reaction that his team started to approach him not only with these problems, but with thought through ideas about solutions. And some of them were actually really good. and there was something to build on. And eventually what we are talking sometimes in our practices about getting out of the weeds. right? Managers have more time to actually think about strategy, think about this oversight. And I think that's a huge benefit of coach approach. Of course, there are situations when you have to jump in and teach and so and so. But if most of the time we spend in being coaches, that gives great results. And one more example was actually with a different coachee where we met. I like having these conversations before starting to work with someone to just understand, where they are and if we have something to do together. And that poor person was saying, "Oh my God, I'm doing these things, but I don't know, and I just want to be more collaborative." And I'm looking at this gem. And they're doing it right. But the thing is, they think they should be boss. They should be the smartest person in a room. And one of the beautiful things also through coaching is that we can find and encourage, in many cases, especially younger leaders, they might naturally gravitate to being coaches, but then they feel bad about it because it's not the culture or it's not what they think they should be doing. And finding that natural, gold there and building on that and building that confidence that actually having a conversation and building trust will excel you as a leader. That's beautiful to be able to support that. And I know that my coaches also are experiencing that when they start becoming support to their co-workers, to their teams. It's so rewarding. It's a totally different experience of work.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it goes back to Tom's comment around how it eventually becomes cultural, right? That impact is then transitioned to others. Jane, how about you? Any examples come to mind?
I'll just give you a different kind of example. Lots of times I work with CEOs, and one of the ones that I've worked with recently is new to the organization. And what this person discovered, but by using like a coach approach mindset with her new team, you really got to understand what was working and what wasn't working in an organization, and whether it was a skills gap, whether it was a behavioral gap, a cultural gap. And so it actually got to flush out what should be elevated and what needed to be dealt with. Not because the people were underperforming, but they had lived in an environment, call it command control, siloed, nobody knew what else anybody else was doing, and it was still a small organization. And so to be able to actually see how we could work better together, it was unlocked by the coach approach. So just another different kind of example.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks so much for that. And maybe we'll transition that to our next question. And both Jane, yourself, and Tom have extensive business and leadership training. Jane, you spent time as an executive coach. Maybe I'll start with you, Jane. Can you tell us a little bit why you think training in a coach approach is important for leaders in today's business environment?
Well, I just go back to my own experience and say, who did I learn supervision from, or delegation or accountability from? What was all the people that I trained under in my career who had no training themselves? So yeah, they were different kinds of people, but nobody actually had skills. They just did what they did. And so when I started to have an executive coach of my own and learn from them, I started to realize there was a better way. And so I think that it actually starts to cut down the experiments that go on with supervisors, leaders, managers, to be able to say, hey, here's some solid practices to try. You're already busy enough, so why don't you try the ones that are tested, like Yeva said, so that we can actually start to just get the results that we want in our business. And for sure, in today's world, nobody has extra time to waste. So I think that it's really just saying, let's not leave supervision and coaching and feedback and growth of our people up for experiment. Let's just get the training and get it done. So I would say that it cuts down the wasted time that we've all grown up with. But maybe I'll turn it over to Tom, and I'm sure he has some thoughts on this one.
Feel free.
Well, I'm a slower learner than Jane. For me to figure it out, I kind of had to have a 2x4 between the eyes, because I took, and it was later in my career. So I learned it actually I didn't get it till I took very specific coaching training, and I was a subject of coaching. And one of the interesting things about, when you go through this coaching training is a lot of it is practicing, right? And being coached, and then kind of that morphs into self-coaching. And the critical thing is about, in my mind, is I spent most of my career thinking that, like Yeva said, I need to be boss, I need to be the decision maker. And we all have these pictures in our minds of what a great leader is. And I've heard it said well is that, a really good leader, you feel good about it when that person walks in the room. You feel good about that person. A great leader makes you feel great about yourself when they walk in the room. And for me, the shift about how do you make people be their best instead of focusing on yourself and being your best, because you're ultimately, as a leader, your performance is a function of the performance of the team. So shifting that focus, because we have so much pressure on ourselves to try and to see how well we are performing, that it takes quite a mind shift. And coaching skills that is the key skill. Like, I also thought, I was trained in listening skills, but no, I didn't get it. I didn't really understand listening skills. And out of that shift comes, another truism that I believe in is that, none of us is as smart as all of us. And that is a direct path. So that listening and that appreciation for the views of others walks you straight into the path of inclusiveness and the value of diversity. So there's a lot of things that spin out of the coach approach. Psych safety, which we cover in this course, is an integral part of it. You can't just have a set of skills without having the environment that makes it thrive. So it's critical, and it is kind of the foundational key skill that a lot of these other things build on in terms of personal performance, team performance, and organization performance.
Yeah, that's great. Yeva, I want to make sure that you have an opportunity here as well. Anything to add on this one in terms of, how you think that can really impact today's business environment?
Well, I think Tom and Jane pretty much covered it. I could just emphasize that the mental health aspect that is becoming more and more of a challenge due to COVID situation. And I think coach approach, by putting emphasis on building relationship and giving tools how to build that trustful relationship through the conversation, it's easier to do it even in Zoom, right? So it's even if we are challenged by not being in one room, learning about how to ask good questions, learning about how to listen actively, give that support through a conversation, even in this more isolated environment. I think that's what we need to do, and not only in our work, it's in our families, in our relationships, and with our children, with our parents that we might not see all that often. So I think that is definitely the skill of a century.
No, I think you've really hit on a really important aspect of that, like genuine and authentic check-in, right? Not the obligatory, like, I'm doing this because I know I'm supposed to, but I'm actually really busy and I'm, actually answering emails instead of listening to you, but I know I should, so I'm going to check in. I think that's a really, really great point, especially in today's current environment. And, to Jane's point around coming out of this as we transition into new hybrid environments, thinking about, the lessons learned here, so crucial. So thanks to each of you for that. Maybe one final question before, and I'll remind our audience here attending today, if you do have questions, feel free, throw them in the chat. We do have Deb here monitoring. We'll make sure that we have some time at the end to ask those questions. So don't feel obligated to wait. Feel free to get those in the queue, and we'll ask our fantastic panelists here in a minute. But last but not least, maybe we'll go to our final question here. Where do you see this program fitting into an overall leadership development program? And Tom, maybe I'll start with you, because I think you kind of hinted at this a little bit about, kind of it being the thread that weaves through a bit of a foundational principle. So maybe I'll see what you have in terms of your comments here.
Sure, thanks. So as I mentioned, and I talked about it a little bit already, is that it's a key skill that, as using your words, it does weave through and it leads to other things. So I think from an overall program, there are other things that it would build on. So,
Sure.
kind of what I see the core foundation of leadership development is self-awareness. So I would think that, I think that 360s are valuable tools, psychometric assessments are valuable tools, so you really understand yourself.
Mhm.
Now, if you can take that and then build on with a coach approach, which is how to listen, that becomes self-developmental. Like when you learn coaching skills, you could self-coach yourself better, and I guess you can become a better friend to yourself. But it's it puts you into a different headspace.
Mhm.
Not that you start talking to yourself too much, but that could happen too. But
Well,
as long as
maybe
you're
especially
listening,
these days.
yeah. So as long as you're listening to yourself, not just talking to yourself. And then you make that transition, as I mentioned, it gets you into psych safety. So, this Athabasca program, it's not just about coaching, it talks about psych safety, which is a key element to the environment. So that's another topic. And then team dynamics, the whole notion of diversity. I mentioned that, this skill set is the pathway into understanding and appreciating the value of diversity. It's not something to be tolerated, it's something valued, and then what you can learn from people that have different ways of looking at things, whether it's different thinking styles, different cultural backgrounds, different genders. So that in itself, could be expanded as part of an overall leadership development program. And then I think you can land up in executive thinking skills, decision-making skills, and things like that. So that would be, to me, kind of the suite, with, again, the coach approach being that key skill in building awareness and learning from others, and getting the focus off of yourself onto the team, and by extension onto the organization.
Yeah, I love that. Yeva, how about you?
So my idea of this program would be that it's like from more practical experience, like in leadership development programs in organization, right? You have this, as Tom mentioned, the psychometrics part where people learn about themselves, which is crucial. Awareness is the basis of everything. But then we go into these, learning modules, and every leadership development program would have company values, business specific modules in it. But this I think the coach approach skill set is again giving a great basis for all of those learnings, right? I see being it just as a part of that leadership development program that includes also other modules, but this being included somewhere at the beginning will really facilitate the effectiveness of all the other learnings after, right? Because this is a major mindset shift. And it is emphasizing development and that relationship. And so I think it would be a great background for any other learnings. And just from my personal practice here, I'm using this program as delegating some of the things, because when I have coaching programs with my coachees, a lot of that is also not only coaching, but also mentoring. And mentoring and teaching about psychology, about neuroscience, about how our brain works, how our defense mechanisms work. And there are so many things that everyone needs to learn. And I'm repeating myself. I'm talking, like SCARF model and CROW model and this model, I'm like, okay, why don't you guys take this course? And then we talk about how you implement it, right? I think this is also a great opportunity for coaches looking at this course as just giving that basic knowledge about what is what for their coachees, and then get to the fun part of it in the coaching, just how to actually do this.
Oh, that's great. And Jane, maybe any final comments here before we turn it over to the audience and take a few questions?
Yeah, maybe just an encouragement that sometimes people get caught up on that they don't even know what a leadership development program is, or they're not big enough, or maybe they're not good enough, or whatever else goes on in your mind. And I would say that given the size of this program, its relatable nature, plain language, really practical application, doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur and looking to grow your team, or whether you're a large organization and you looked at your big leadership program and you realize you don't have coaching skills in it. And so I would say just to be able to check it out and say, where does this fit in what we need to do as an organization this year? And the other fun thing about this program is that you can certainly take it on your own and just develop your own skills, but you can also take it as a group. And whether that group is people at the same level or people at different levels, I think that there's a huge amount of power to be able to have this common frameworks, common language, and the ability to practice. Like Tom said, that's so important. And so if you have buddy or buddies, that would be fantastic to do the program together.
No, and I think, yeah, go ahead, Jet.
Yeah, and if I can just jump in, Jane, and just let everyone know that there is the ability to practice those coaching skills right within the course. We've developed this really cool AI, and you're given some scenarios, and you can put your feedback in, and you get immediate feedback from the AI. And as the AI grows and learns from all the participants, it just gets to be a really great practice tool.
Talk about alignment. You took the words right out of my mouth, Deb.
Sorry.
That's great. No, that's perfect. I'm so glad that we were able to bring that up, because I think what really ties this together, as we've talked over the last few questions, is that idea of this being one piece of the puzzle. And I think that's really reflective in the approach that PowerEd's tried to take in our leadership programming. And that's one of the reasons why we really tied Coach Approach to our other leadership training. It's not an either or. I think we live in an and environment. And what you're all really talking about is, creating those skills, adding tools to your tool belt. And that's one of the reasons why we've aligned this Coach Approach as a central skill set with our leader development program, which is a 4-course certificate, along with our Essential Skills for Leaders program, which is also a 4-course certificate. So depending upon where your focus is and what you want to learn as you grow out your leadership journey, we've really tried to position this Coach Approach as that central theme, and your ability to not only earn badges for those courses, but a master badge in leadership and coaching, really signifying your emphasis on those skill sets. So I think, as a final question that ties up really nicely as we move into our question period here. So thanks again. I'll give our panelists a few minutes to sort of collect themselves. Deb, I know you're monitoring the questions, but
Yes.
I'll just say a quick thank you to everyone as we go through for attending today. Really appreciate your time. We know everyone is extremely busy. And as a thank you for that, please feel free to take advantage of a voucher code if you are interested in taking Coach Approach for leader development. Just enter Coach 15 at checkout and you'll receive that 15% off. So a little bit of incentive for your attendance here today. But Deb, why don't I turn it over to you and see if we've got any questions for our panelists here. We've got about 15 minutes left.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. So there's a couple of questions here. So, and one of our audience would like to know if there's any recommended material to read or learn prior to starting the Coach Approach course. Yeva, can you recommend anything?
Oh, there's a list. But so we tried to put some bits and pieces in a course in a way that it would make sense, also sequence-wise. But there are some great articles, such as Scarf article. And Scarf, it's not about fashion, it's about neuroscience. It's actually article done by Neuroleadership Institute, David Rock. And it's actually free online, so you feel free reading about it. And I think the more people read about it, the better. I've read that article about, I think, like 5 years ago or so, and continuously learning and continuously expanding my understanding of applying that knowledge. But that becomes like, it's basically how to manage the triggers in our brain that triggers our brain in reward or defense, stress, run, fly. And currently leaders need to balance that in themselves and in their teams on a daily basis. When we learn about how does this work when we make someone inspired or we make someone stressed and we get defense reactions, right? And how to understand which triggers did we trigger. That becomes very practical knowledge once you're looking at it that way. And I've had also some examples from leaders, let's say when they learn about that concept, they read let's say they have to write an email, right? And they read their email and they look for those triggers and how are they actually triggering the other person. So that's a really good read. And I think if you do it prior to course, it will only add to your understanding of all the other methodologies in a course, and you will get a deeper level of knowledge there. But that's also included in a course because it is important part. One of those background things, like if you know it, you're on a solid base. So that would be one. And I'll give a chance to maybe Tom and Jane to say something.
Maybe the thing I would say is that we know that there are busy people going to be taking the program. So I think you're going to be inspired by the content and you can dive deeper and deeper in it. But I don't think you should be intimidated to think you have to have a base level of knowledge coming in. Just come in and dive in, and then and then you're going to get on this journey that Tom talked about. You won't be able to turn back, and you won't want to. So.
Great. So we have another question here. And probably, Yeva, you could answer this one. Would this program also support passionate internal coaches into gaining global certification with the ICF?
So this course was designed not to train coach.
Okay.
It was for leadership for managers. Okay. So this course at this point is not part of ICF certification. But I see it as a great add-on if you are certified already and you want to understand management better, how your coaching approach can actually support your leadership better. What are other aspects? Like we've designed this course putting together things from many worlds: psychology, neuroscience, coaching, management, leadership. It's the perfect combo kit, right? So I think it's a great add-on if you want to become not so much just a coach, but see how it contributes to the business growth and scalability of the business. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think so, Yeva. I mean, in looking at, how we've positioned this course, I think there's certainly value for those individuals who are already working as coaches, like you said, because it's really that great add-on to taking that kind of holistic approach to leadership and how you can impact and build those or strengthen those relationships with team members within your organization. So yeah, no, really appreciate that. Deb, were there any other questions? Oh, so go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to add back the previous question on the reading list. I'm a big fan of Jim Collins, Good to Great.
Yeah.
And if, I hate saying, hey, read this book, because you're asking people to invest a good part of their life to read a whole book. But if you just Google, level 5 leadership, Jim Collins, there's a lot of information out there, little short articles, but just it's a really, really good reminder of research and data that demonstrates that the best, most enduring, resilient leadership styles that have built organizations are other-centered. And I think that would provide, good motivation to develop the skill set that of a coach approach, because it gets that paradigm shift that it's not about you, it's about the people that you're working with. So level 5 leadership.
Yeah, that's
Thanks,
great. I can certainly say that Good to Great was one that I started with. It's sitting on my shelf there behind us. Was definitely a great opportunity there. And I know Yeva, earlier on you mentioned Amy Edmondson. I was fortunate enough to get to attend an opportunity to connect virtually with a presentation she gave, and that idea of psychological safety was supremely eye-opening. So like Jane said, I don't think any of these things are required, but if you're interested, this course is really going to provide you with that great foundation where you're going to get to dive even deeper into the things that you become really interested in. Those additional resources and appendix are going to provide you with numerous areas to go and Google and continue to learn from. So that one. Deb, I know we've got a second question here, and maybe I'll try and take this one. How does the breakdown of 8 to 10 hours per week work? And that's a great question, a little bit more prescriptive about PowerEd. So we're really trying to provide flexible online education. We recognize our courses are geared towards busy working professionals. So that 8 to 10 hours is really up to you. This course is delivered entirely asynchronously, say that 5 times fast. But we've got wonderful panelists here today who are featured in video form. So it really allows you to build a schedule that works for you. As Deb mentioned, if you're an early riser, take that time in the morning when the house is quiet, or maybe late at night, or maybe over your lunch hours. It's really about fitting in that time and energy when it best suits you. Those are kind of guidelines in terms of the overall expectation. Some people might move through things a little bit quicker. Others might really delve into a topic, and it might send them, as we've been chatting about here today, to go and read other things that are outside of the course. So it's really about just providing you with that foundational principles, those really tangible takeaways. But you can expect to spend somewhere in that neighborhood kind of per week over the 2 weeks of the course.
Yeah, and Ian, we've also got placed inside the learning environment a bit of a breakdown too of kind of how to get through the course in the 2-week time frame. We do have some additional questions here that I don't want to miss out on.
Absolutely.
One is Jane loved the comment about coaching up, and what does that look like in practice?
Well, it's always that tricky dance where, let's say you have an idea, or you see your boss or leader in your organization doing something that's getting in the way. So how do you give them feedback to say, hey, couldn't we do things better? So I think the content of the coach approach gives you some frameworks around, how to talk about difficult issues, how to ask questions and listen. And like Yeva said, like psychological safety as an example, your boss also needs psychological safety. So how do we create an environment that we can actually have an honest conversation? So to me, it's about opening the potential for the discussion and actually kind of brainstorming together about how we make the fit. So consider it coaching up or influencing up or just collaborating, whatever set of words resonates with you. But it's that, there's something important that has to be said, or there's an idea to get on the table, and that's where we truly get breakthroughs across organizations.
Yeah, that's great. Great comment, Jane. Thanks for handling that. I know there's one other comment here around, are there options for 1 or 2 company leaders to take the program as almost a pilot before committing to rolling out across a large company? Also, where would we find pricing breakdowns? So getting into the nitty gritty, super excited for this conversation as our business development officer, but yes, absolutely. We are more than happy to discuss what a pilot program might look like. You can see our email there on screen, powered@athabascau.ca. Please feel free to send us a note. We're more than happy to have those discussions, and we can certainly look at a pricing model that makes sense for your organization. That is something that PowerEd really believes in terms of our ability to scale offerings for organizations and provide that custom experience. So please feel free to reach out to us, and we can follow up directly after this as well. But that customization is something that we look to provide.
Yeah, and maybe I'll follow up on this second part of the question here. we have someone wondering about 8 hours. To clarify, is it 8 hours of video or practice, and what activities make up the 8 hours? So what we've tried to do with our PowerEd courses is appeal to all types of learners. So we haven't stuck a PDF up on a screen for you to read, and we don't have someone standing in front of you lecturing. It's very interactive. So there's interactivities, there's exercises, there's knowledge checks, and as Ian mentioned earlier, there's real life examples using Jane and Tom and Dave, it's just hopefully we've hit the mark on fulfilling everyone's learning styles. There's links to additional readings, and as we mentioned before, there's an AI where you can practice your coaching skills. So that's kind of the breakdown.
Yeah, it's really about providing that engaging learning environment. So, moving from one modality to another. So you're not simply just reading endless amounts of text, but seeing that text in different ways. So whether it's a video kind of introducing key concepts, hearing from those experts and their experiences, and then moving into a concept where maybe, as Deb mentioned, you're doing an activity moving through that. So that's all encompassed in that kind of 8 to 10 hour guideline. Well, with that, we've got about 4 minutes here. Want to be mindful of everyone's time, appreciative. It looks like we've worked through all of our questions, but just wanted to take a moment to thank our 3 panelists. Without them and them providing their time here today, we wouldn't be able to offer something like this. So thank you to each and every one of you for attending today. I know it was supremely helpful for Deb and I to be able to learn a little bit more about Coach Approach and your experience with it, and hopefully our audience found it useful as well. Just a reminder, if any of you are interested, we can provide a recording of this. If you're interested in sharing it with your team, please feel free to reach out to us at powered@athabascau.ca. That email is monitored by Deb and myself.
Yeah.
You've met us now. We're all friends.
Yeah.
Feel free, ask us questions, let us know. We're here to help, but thanks to everyone today for their time, and we hope you enjoyed today's presentation.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you so much,
That's
everyone.
Okay.
See you out there.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.